Good morning, everybody, and welcome back. My name is Jordan, also known as JMonster, and for those of you who do not know me, I am the lead developer behind Silmarillion Total War. Today we're going to be playing on our test patch. It does, however, take a little bit of time to rally the testers to play some games, so in the meantime, I have time to open the floor to any questions that you may have regarding development, particularly with regards to what you're going to see in this patch. I can tell you that one of the major goals for this patch, I'll get this out of the way right off the bat, because it's a pretty popular question. One of the main goals for this patch is to have a working alpha for the campaign. So hopefully we will have single player to you in, I would expect development time to run at the very least for about a year. We just released our last patch in April, and we took a little bit of a break, a much needed and well-deserved break. So we will be working on campaign moving forward. We do have a working campaign map. I believe most of the settlements have already been placed and all of the tiles divided up accordingly. So that is something that will be happening. But today we're going to be talking about the multiplayer for the most part. Valinor is the first new faction that you'll be able to see. Unfortunately, I don't have them available for you on this particular build. However, by the time I leave for vacation on the 19th of June, I guarantee you that I will have some semblance of Valinor on the test patch, and that will be available to multiple YouTubers, including UMAD Commander and Scouts of Entertainment, as well as any other YouTubers out there who may be in the audience, established or prospective, that may want to get in on Silmarillion Total War and show it off to their audience. If you guys are interested in doing that, just send me a PM on Discord, or you can say something in the chat and we can get in touch that way. I will be playing a lot of just like music that I enjoy today, including some of the hits from the Total War soundtrack. That you could hear the Napoleon thing playing in the background, but it does mean that I get demonetized pretty well immediately. So if you guys want to support the channel, specifically the channel, I do not have any sort of Patreon or anything like that going on for Silmarillion Total War, for reasons I can discuss later if you prefer. But if you want to support the channel, I do have super chats open. Normally I don't usually do that, but I think it's probably not the worst thing to start doing. There's a lot of time and effort that goes into to streaming and that sort of thing. So if you guys want to support the channel that way, you can do so down in the description. I do also have a Patreon. Anyway, that's enough of that. I want to talk to you a little bit while we wait for some of our testers to get back to me. In the meantime, let's go ahead and host a lobby. I want to talk a little bit about the direction that we'll be taking the multiplayer. There are some fairly substantial changes. One in particular, and I would like to stress that these are not final changes. These are things that we're just looking at, exploring over the course of the next 10 to 12 plus months. So, test patch. One of the biggest is I watch a lot of Total War multiplayer. It may not come as a surprise to you that I am a big fan of the Total War multiplayer scene across many different titles. That includes Warhammer. And one of the things that I like and also curse about the Warhammer series is that there is so much build diversity to the point where there's almost anything, you can do almost anything under the right circumstances. It does, however, lead towards a little bit of build roulette, which is something that I do want to keep an eye on. However, I am interested in increasing the amount of compositional diversity across all factions. Moving into the initial stages of Silmarillion Total War, it was much more necessary to have things be a little bit more static, a little bit more fixed, so that we could accurately hone the specializations of each and every faction and each and every unit within those factions. But now that we're a little bit more comfortable with that, I think it is a good time to start to open the floor a little bit and to get those different compositions in there, so that it's not just 2-3 builds that you play per faction. My ideal would be somewhere along the lines of about twice that, so between 5 and 6 solid builds per faction, with maybe some off-meta stuff here and there. So I want to make as many options available to players as possible. That's a really big part of the way that I like to approach designing the mod, and something that is really important to me, moving into trying to become a game designer in my own right, is that I want to give people the maximum amount of freedom and just kind of see what they do with it. So that's a big part of this upcoming update. So to that end, you may be wondering, what the purpose of the spiel is. To that end, I want to look at decreasing the overall cost of units across the board, not by the same percentage, but across tiers, generally. What we were looking at initially, this may get some tweaking and maybe something that we throw out entirely, was a 5, 10, 20% split for your bodyguard tier, your high tier, and your mid tier / low tier units. Yeah, I think that would open up a lot of new possibilities. We'd have to look at maybe decreasing the overall budget from 1450 or 14,500, which is what we have right now, just to make sure that you can't just spam your Uber tier units. It will require a lot of tweaking and a lot of hard work on our end. However, yeah, I think that it'll be worth it in the end. I think that will increase compositional diversity overall. You'll be able to, dip into red prices on certain units a lot more often and easily. And one of the other important consequences of having things overall be cheaper is that you are able to more liberally give chevrons to things, because chevrons are, unfortunately, tied to the base price, and there's really nothing that I can do about that, unfortunately. So the cheaper units are, the more that you can customize them, basically, with chevrons and other things like that. But let's just take a quick moment here and look into the chat and see what's going on. Greetings, JMonster. Summer holidays have just started, so excellent timing. Yeah, I'm really excited about having some summer holidays. I hope you have lots of fun, exciting things planned to make up for the last year of bedlam. But welcome to the stream, Joseph Reg. Hello, Buzzard. How's it going, buddy? Let's see. No questions in our chat for now. If you guys do have any questions regarding campaign, I can give you as much information as I'm able. Or if you have other questions about things that I talk about on stream, just pop it into the chat and I'll address it in due course. One of the other big changes that is coming to Silmarillion Total War, aside from the price-related thing, is that we will be increasing the speed of certain units. So light infantry are going to get a little bit faster. They are currently relatively fast compared to heavy infantry. You can sort of see the difference there, 1.125 versus 1.05, which is fairly significant. I want to look at maybe increasing that a little bit more, carving out further the niche of light infantry, who do have some fairly significant drawbacks in terms of their overall defensive capabilities outside of their melee defense, which they do a little bit better in than other heavy infantry or medium infantry, for example. But yeah, making them fast and effective when it comes to being in close quarters versus, say, other heavy infantry units, then yeah, I really want to explore making them more viable than they already are. Their light infantry are pretty good at the moment, but I think that there is room for improvement there for sure. On the topic of heavy infantry units like, say, the Footmen of Amras, you've probably noticed that they've gone down from 8 melee defense to 6 melee defense. When it comes to heavily shielded units like so, and this is really a preemptive change that's sort of addressing some potential issues with dwarves a little bit farther down the line, because they are also on the docket for this patch as well, is making sure that when units have these really high shield and in particular armor values, that there is some meaningful drawbacks there in terms of their melee skill. As I mentioned earlier, the light infantry tend to be a little bit higher in that regard. But if there's just too much armor and too much shield, and you pair that with a pretty decent melee defense score, that unit does end up punching quite farther above its price point than it probably should. So yeah, that's something that we're looking into changing as well, and that I've already implemented on this particular build. So units like the Footmen of Amras, the Otorn Mightymo. This does kind of hit Feanor in particular, I feel. And it also does increase their vulnerability to armor piercing, which has always been a goal. Feanor, I always wanted them to sort of rely more on their armor and their shield value than they do in their melee skill. So now I think that we've made that a little bit more acute. And I think that can only be a good thing and only add to the sort of flavor and the overall balance of the mod. So, just a moment. Let's see, what else has changed? We do have some new traits that I think you guys are going to find very interesting, and Assyrian in particular does benefit from these. So, there we go. Now my money's good. So if you look here, you see a little trait next to the animation that says Shield Breaker. So Jojo, who is a really, really prolific modder who just helps out everybody all the time across the whole community. Brought some interesting traits to my attention. In particular, the traits that these units have allows them to ignore exclusively 50% of shield value, and you can pair that with an armor-piercing archer, which already, or an armor-piercing projectile generally, which already ignores half of shield and half of armor value, and you can bump that up to 75% reduction, making them far, far more deadly, and allowing them to punch much, much harder than their 6 missile damage, for example, would suggest. Other units like the Philathrim will also be benefiting from this. Basically anything that is an armor-piercing archer or a crossbowman. So let's take a look at the Philathrim here as well. You can see that they also have the AP and that shield breaker. They've got 8 missile damage, so they will hit extremely hard. I will be paying a lot of attention to these units and their overall damage output in order to make sure that if I need to adjust their ammo up or down, probably down if anything, if any changes get made. That's something that we'll be keeping an eye on, because that is a really big increase in their overall DPS. But going back to Assyrians, units like the Skirmishers of Rathloriel now will be able to ignore 50% of shield value, which is really, really nice for them. The Skirmishers of Rathloriel, I think, are a unit that I, even as a very heavy Assyrian player, have struggled to get into my compositions. So, yeah. So hopefully this is something that gives them a little bit more viability on the battlefield. They can be quite fragile. They do have like good skill and things like that. But yeah, they do struggle to be viable, I think, in a lot of matchups. So hopefully this is something that brings them up to par with the rest of the Assyrian roster and gives Assyrian overall a little bit more punch on their front line, since they do rely quite heavily on say the Urfinen Tower to supplement all of the many spear units that they do have. In addition to that, these haven't been implemented yet, but thanks to the modder I mentioned earlier, Jojo, he's going to be increasing the speed of certain animations, and I will be applying those to dual-wielding units to increase their overall DPS, to make them more of a viable option in close quarters, to offset the lack of survivability that the lack of a shield otherwise, or that the presence of a shield otherwise would give them. So yeah, that's pretty significant. We do also have some faster bow animations that we'll be applying to certain units, like the Green Elves, for example, who, moving into the new patch with Valinor and all the cool stuff they have, and the heavy armor, and the multiple HP of many of the Valinor units, and the heavy armor of the Dwarves moving forward, Assyrian in particular is a faction that can struggle with them because of the damage that we keep our bows at now. Bows are generally a bit more specialized for dealing with more lightly armored or unshielded targets, whereas things like crossbows or armor-piercing arrows or slings, etc., are your go-tos for harming heavy infantry. And that's something that, outside the Ando Hyando legendary company, that Assyrian currently lacks, at least from range. So, to that end, we have been playing with the shield breaker trait, the new armor-piercing reduction that the Ando Hyando will be able to enjoy, some faster animations for both bows and dual-wielding units. That's some pretty big changes coming to Assyrian. And to top it all off, currently playing with the Scouts of Galleon being capped at 4 instead of 3, and the Sentries, being capped at 3 instead of 4, just to open up a few more builds and to give Assyrian access to these 2 units in particular, which are kind of their mainstay. I don't know if you guys have caught some of my past Assyrian streams, but these are the 2 units that really do a lot of work, whereas everything else is just kind of there to hold the line or a little bit more niche. The Urfinen Tower, another really strongly performing unit, but other than that, Spearhost of Rathloriel, Spearhost of Galleon, etc., they're really just there to sort of hold the line and grind people down over time, whereas a lot of the damage is really going to come from your scouts in them. So yeah, let's go ahead and check the chat here and see if we have any more questions. Oh, we have so many. Hello there. What are the new factions? I didn't watch Silmarillion for a long time. The new factions haven't been added yet, but on the docket for I hate everyone, but I'll drink to you. Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. That would be Stanislav Ohuenkov. I think I got that right. My Russian's pretty rusty. Thank you so much, man. I appreciate that. what's the timescale for the release of the Nalgrim and the Host of Valinor. I can't speak to the dwarves, but I will tell you that I want to have some form of Valinor available on the test patch for my testers to play with and for YouTubers to show off by the 19th of this month, because I will be going on vacation and I'll be gone until basically August, since I'll be going up island to Cape Scott and up to Tofino and doing some surfing and just, living my life while I still can before my 6th class semester starts in September. Medi Judy, what are the new factions? The 2 new factions on the docket that are guaranteed to be in this patch, that I will not release this patch until those 2 factions are ready, are the Blessed Realm of Valinor and the Nalgrim. That name currently work in progress. Whether we call them the Nalgrim or the Khazad really depends on what direction we want to go, but they are the dwarves. So the dwarves and a new elven faction with some weird units. Gondolin. Well, the Haladin were added shortly after Gondolin. Yeah, so those 2 factions are the new ones. Restoria and Horchat used to be camp at 3 until you nerfed it. Yeah, back then, I mean, it was a different thing. Like, Tolin Gaurahoth basically just got reduced to ashes by a city end. So that was a change that we made, where we brought the cap back and then added a legendary company specifically tooled for hunting those horse archer units, just to give Tolin Gaurahoth a little bit of a break. But things have evolved since then, so I think I'm feeling a little bit more safe to loosen the caps on those. As I mentioned earlier, I wanted to, early on in the development, we wanted to keep things like pretty tight so that we could get a handle on playstyles and things like that. Any plans for more evil factions? Oh, yes. I am so happy to be able to give you some good news here. One of the evil factions that we have planned, and I will talk a lot about this because I'm sure people have a lot of questions, and some people may just be like, what? Why would you ever? Is Nandun Gortheb. So I have created some custom lore for Nandun Gortheb in order to make them plausible as an addition. But there's two big reasons why. One of them is campaign, so there will be a campaign-only faction that you can't play. Like, it's an AI faction, but you can play them in multiplayer. And the 2 reasons why I want to include Nandun Gortheb is, one, because we don't have an evil faction, or an orcish faction specifically, that is good at skirmishing. In fact, most of the mods that I've played that involve orcs really just don't have a faction that's like good at skirmishing. So the big draw of the playstyle of Nandun Gortheb, as I've planned them so far, is relying heavily on monsters and monsters cavalry, in particular spiders, and a lot of light infantry, but also a lot of skirmishing, which is something that I'm pretty excited to play around with, because as far as I know, there's no mod out there that has a faction that sort of functions that way. If you want to think of them in terms of a more recent Total War analog, maybe think of them as like a Night Goblin themed build, I guess, with a lot of like spiders and things like that. Although there are some interesting twists that I will go into, because they won't just have spiders and orcs. There are some like eldritch horrors and stuff that I've created wholesale. What's the unit left of the Outriders of Dweilwyn? That is a new unit that we added in the last patch. That would be the Lancers of the Adurant. And the other reason to include Nandun Gortheb is for campaign reasons for Doriath. So they will be AI only. And Doriath, if you look at them, they're basically surrounded by friendly factions, right? So when we're like looking at getting the campaign going and how things are ultimately going to play out, one of the questions we're asking ourselves is what are the challenges in the mid or the early or the late game for every faction? Yeah, this is a long time back, Artorias. I don't know if you actually remember it or not. But yeah, so one of the questions we're asking ourselves is, what is the early, mid, and late game going to look like? So Doriath, if you want to look at like a map of Beleriand, you can open up a tab or something. They're actually like smack dab in the middle of a bunch of friendly factions. And then the only option that you would have would be to expand into your friendly neighbors. And I know that people enjoy Total War because it is a sandbox, but like I said earlier in the stream, I like to give people choices. So if you don't want to just immediately become a Kinslayer, then you do have this Orcish faction who's right on their border, because Nandun Gortheb is located to the north of Doriath, right on their border. You have an early game challenge that is overall kind of tooled towards being potentially very difficult for Doriath, who has some very limited skirmish capacity, Nandan Gortheb will have some Loch Morale fodder units and things like that, and a lot of monstrous cavalry, which Doriath doesn't necessarily have easy answers to, especially when it comes to skirmishing. But they do, of course, have some good anti-monster capabilities. So it's not like they're just tooled to completely roll over Doriath, because, of course, that would cause some imbalances in multiplayer. But they do pose certain challenges for Doriath in particular in the early game, especially when they're going to be relying on their mid-tier units, the girdle units, and things like that. So they're there to be a challenge for Doriath and to make their campaign in the early game actually interesting, and to give players the option to not just immediately become a Kinslayer and to kind of just let things play out over time on the campaign map, and then you can, choose how you want to do things. So otherwise, Doriath would have to play in a certain way, and I wouldn't want them to do that. Can I play dwarves? Eventually we'll be able to play dwarves. Hello, Kamul. Thank you. Lance of the Adorant. Yep. I think that's all the questions we have for now. So I'm going to try and pull in some more of my testers. Or at least one of my testers. But in the meanwhile, I will go over some of the other changes and things like that. Just give me a quick moment here. And I'll review my my notes. One of the other things that we're going to be looking at is the status of Pikeman in the mod currently. We are using some animations from EB2, Europa Barbarorum 2, which is a fantastic mod from EB2. If you like history, highly recommend that you go and check that out if that's your bag. But our Pikemen currently are using their animations, and they have been less potent than they have been in the past. I don't think that they're useless, but I think that they just don't do as much damage. So our lead tester, Artorius, who's actually down there in the chat, brought some interesting distinctions between certain animation sets to my attention. And bearing those in mind, what I want to do is increase the amount of men in a pikeman unit so that you get these proper pike phalanxes, and then I want to apply these new animation sets to them according to the theme of the unit. So, for example, the Fingolfin pikes here, the Sentries of Hithlum, we already have some smaller, finer distinctions here. So, for example, the Nargothrond pikes, Bridge Wardens, can upgrade their armor, but they can't upgrade their attack. Whereas the Fingolfin pikes are kind of the opposite, right? And that they can't upgrade their armor, but they can upgrade their attack. And there's going to be, more of them, etc., etc. So what we want to do is increase the overall number size. I want to give them a minor missile deflection bonus. So I don't know if I've already done that with the Nargothrond pikes. I might have done it for one, but not done it for the other. Yeah, okay. So I goofed there. That's something I can fix later. But the Bridge Wards of Nargothrons, they have the armor upgrade. Now they have that missile deflection because they're a heavy pike unit. Whereas a unit like, say, the Fingolfin pikes, who already have extra men, will get some more men, and they will have a smaller missile deflection bonus just to sort of simulate that wall of spears, getting in the way and occasionally deflecting the odd missile here and there, which does make their lives a little bit more easy. So yeah, that's kind of the direction the pikemen will be heading in, just a little bit more specialization. We do have a third pike unit that will be added to Gondolin. Gondolin will be finally getting their legendary company, which is being worked on by Castellan of Angmar. So if you guys are unfamiliar with him, he did the Gallants of the White Wing. I think just the Gallants of the White Wing for Gondolin, but he's also made some really cool units elsewhere in the mod, like Sauron here. That's one of his creations. And the Arimo Arantar and the Arqueni Findicano. So he's really, really good at what he does, and I can tell you that the model is, it's awesome. Hasn't been textured yet, but it already looks fantastic. So the Gondolin Pike will be getting added, and I'm not entirely sure what their status is going to end up being, but I think they will be more on the lightly armored, more offensive side of things, to contrast with the Nargothrond Pikemen. So yeah, that's Pikemen. I also want to add some new and weird unit types. So we are going to be integrating the EOP project, the Engine Overhaul project, and that is going to bring back some classic mechanics like Berserkers as they were in the first Rome Total War. So this hasn't been implemented yet, but units like the Ulfodin, for example, and potentially will require a lot of testing. Things like the Hishbukraz Maybe just the detachment, just so we have that sort of finer distinction where you pick like, offensive capability versus, more numbers and more of a tar pit. Those units will function a lot more like Berserkers from Rome 1, where they just, go crazy in melee, rampage, toss people around, and just become kind of a nightmare. That's going to require a lot of testing, of course, but that is one of the things that we will be looking at integrating into the mod in the very, very near future. Let's see. It's a bunch of other things. I want to look at adding like war dog units, like war dogs and handlers. I think that the Haladin and potentially Feanor are two viable candidates for such a unit that would make a lot of sense. Maybe a warg-like unit for Tulin Gaurhoth might be kind of cool, although that's one's kind of iffy because they already cover so many bases with the warg units that they already have, or werewolves, because werewolves are just wolves in Tolkien's universe. Yeah, things like that. What else? What other interesting things have we brought to the table here? There's some other minor details as well. Doriath units here, like the Tyrion Lysdanen and the Marksmen of Region, have changed a lot. In particular, the Marksmen of Region have lost a good deal of damage. The reasoning behind that is that this unit was meant to be a tool for disruption, not a tool for damage, but they were just consistently being used for the last 2 years as a tool for specifically damage and specifically to pick on cavalry who already have a rough go of it at times in Silmarillion, as they are more of a supporting unit or like an opportunistic hunter unit. And they can be quite easily rendered ineffective by a unit like, say, the Marksman of Region. So there's a couple good reasons to do that. We'll see exactly what the new specifications do for the unit itself. Now, they've gone from 8 to 10 ammo, so they're nearly full ammo. So most high-tier units have about 12 ammunition. These guys have 10, so they're getting up there. The Tyrion Lysdanen now have the Shield Breaker trait instead of having Armor Piercing. I think that's a little bit more reasonable, I feel. Doriath has already quite a lot of Armor Piercing options, and with units like the Kuthalim becoming more powerful and better at doing their job from range, I felt like it would be maybe a little bit too much to have the Tyrion Lysdanen also have Armor Piercing, and then also have Harassment Javelins in the form of the Spearmen of the Girdle detachments. So there's already a lot of Armor Piercing, so you would take it, like currently in Doriath, these are their Armor Piercing units, and there's quite a lot there. These are really common units. You're going to see these in a ton of different builds. So then having, the Tyrion Lysdanen be that way as well, that's a little bit, I felt it was a little bit too much on the skirmishing armor piercing side of things. Wardens of the Girdle also have shield breakers. You can see here they are poisonous shield breakers, so they will be able to deal morale damage as they have always done, in addition to getting a little bit of extra damage in from the shield breaker trait. And a lot of these sort of hybrid units with a low amount of ammunition are going to function this way. One of the other candidates for this that I haven't yet implemented would be the Herdsman of Hithlum. I think that wouldn't be the worst. I think this is something that we could see being a trend for most hybrid melee-focused archer units going forward. I think that would be pretty reasonable. There's not too many other ones that do that, with the exception of, say, Spearmen, because they're a little bit more defensive and they already have utility against cavalry. I think that might be just, putting too many eggs in one basket. But yeah, Scouts of the Tree also have Shield Breaker. That's kind of nice, and they're also Armor Piercing, so they can be pretty good. That's something that may not continue. They may end up just with the Shield Breaker, but we'll see. 1 damage isn't huge, so even if you're like cutting, say, 11 armor down to 5, because I think it rounds down, it's still 5 times the strength of the incoming missile, plus there's still like shield value. Or no, it's a little bit less than that. It might end up being kind of overpowered. My math is off. I'm tired. Forgive me. But let's pop over to chat. Good guys. Sauron gives out gifts. Help develop industry and create thousands of jobs. It's true. It's true. Werewolves. Will the Eye faction get something equivalent to trolls but wolves? Maybe it's something that I've thought about. If they do get such a unit, sort of a skin wolves-esque thing, then that would definitely be a campaign only unit. Let's see if I can pull one of my my testers in here. But yeah, that is something that I've thought about, because I get a lot of questions about Tolkien Gauderhoth. Let me just say this. We'll just say this on stream so that this maybe moving forward will be, you know, understood. In Tolkien's universe, werewolves are just evil-ass wolves, sometimes with the spirits of fallen Maiar in them. But ultimately, they are just wolf-shaped things. They're not like the traditional, the more, I guess, Western pop culture conception of werewolves, where it's a guy who turns into a bipedal wolfman. That's not really what they are. So when it comes to the presence of werewolves in Tolkien Gauderhoth, the Isle of Werewolves, that's what we have all of these units riding on. These big, ugly, scary wargs that don't really appear anywhere else. So Angband, for example, oh, good, Tendra's Fox is here. Let me just adjust this and we can maybe get a game underway. Angband, for example, has some wolf units, but they're very, very different. They're a little bit, they have like these iron collars. They look a little bit more like tormented. They're kind of mangy in that they don't like have any fur and stuff like that. Whereas these warg models have been specifically chosen for Tolkien Gauderhoth and appear nowhere else. And that's so we can be like, hey, these are Tolkien Gauderhoth werewolves, and these are Angband werewolves, or these are just Angband wolves, or whatever they happen to be, right? Not all evil wolves are werewolves, but specifically these ones are, and that's why I chose the model that they have. Yeah. What else? What other interesting things do we have going on? I think I covered a lot of it. We do have some more armor upgrades available to units going forward. Why don't we choose... And someone asked me to play Gondolin, Philathrim, or the Philathrim. And he's going with Philathrim, which might be a rough go of it for me as the Philathrim. But I'm not very good at Gondolin. I'm more comfortable with the Philathrim. Let's try out Gondolin. We'll give it a go. They've got the heavy armor necessary to kind of weather the missile storm that is Philathrim. Yeah, where was I? I think we basically covered all that needs to be said about werewolves. You know, that's what the wolf units are intended to represent, and it's supposed to be in line with sort of the author's conception of werewolves within his own universe. So yeah, Gondolin. Let's figure out something useful. Well, the Gallants of the White Wing were unfortunately underperforming because their mass was 2 instead of 1, which makes them push forward and get surrounded. So I'm eager to see how they perform here. I'm going to take some shield bearers because they are so nice. I'm going to take 3 of them. That'll be sort of our core. Scouts of the Tree are nice. Not necessarily the best choice. The Philathrim heavy archers can really like do a number on them very quickly. But we don't have a lot of skirmish capacity as these guys. So I think I would like to have some cavalry, because that's a big weakness of Philathrim, is they just don't have any cavalry to counter your own. But that would preclude me from bringing the Marksmen of the Heavenly Arch, who now have the Shield Breaker trait, and I would like to see how they perform. And they are one of those units that now have an armor upgrade, so that's kind of cool. It's a decent little core there. It does cost us quite a lot. Drop down. Maybe we'll get rid of the Scouts of the Tree. Or just go for something a little bit more, I guess, traditional. With that in mind, maybe we can just use 1 Gallant as our bodyguard. We'll go pretty hard on them. Yeah. Yeah, alright, we can try that. We want to bring next. Like I said, I'm not very good at Gondolin. I'll try and surprise him with that, why not? Don't want to have so little that I can't really withstand him, but we also do need some sort of more offensive punch. Maybe we'll drop one of those. I'll bring some of the armorers, because they now have an extra armor upgrade, which makes them very, very potent indeed. And then we do have some range capacity, something that can soak up some of that nasty Philathrim bow fire. We have some catapults to draw them forward and deal damage. And the catapult crews for Gondolin, for those unfamiliar with the faction, are actually pretty decent. They're all specialized infantry, sort of based on the nature of the siege engine that they crew. So the catapult crewmen are actually medium axemen, based on some of the gate guards from Gondolin, which is kind of neat. Fun little detail. I think we definitely need some like chaff to try and support our units here. So some guardsmen of the harp probably wouldn't go amiss. And then maybe could throw down on a couple of scouts there. Maybe. There we go. It's an alright army. I honestly don't even know. I don't play Gondolin a lot, and I'm a little bit out of the loop in terms of the meta, just because I haven't really been able to play as much as I'd like to. I think that'll do. I think that very much will do. Maybe we'll... might be a little bit better for us. Yeah, we'll do that. Well, we'll see how it goes. I'm probably going to get my ass handed to me by Thunder's Fox. I know he's been playing a hell of a lot more than I have lately, and he's not a bad player by any means, so I apologize for what you're about to see. Meanwhile, tab out here. Does this mod have games hosted randomly or organized? Generally, we tend to organize things through our Discord. The community for Silmarillion is a little bit smaller. I think that's because of the more niche nature of the like subject matter. Like, not everyone is familiar with the first age, but people are familiar with the third age because movies and blah blah blah. And that's just like the Lord of the Rings, and that's, you know, a book that's read more than the Bible. So that I think is pretty natural. And also, we don't currently have our single player. My hope is that once we have the single player ready to go, then we'll see more people, more random lobbies, that kind of thing. As people get used to all the individual units through the single player, then they'll want to branch out a little bit more into the multiplayer as well. I think that that's probably a big thing, is that people are like, well, seems like there's a lot to learn here, and I don't want to have to deal with that, which, you know, fair enough. People are more comfortable with the things they're familiar with. So that's my fond hope, is that we will eventually have a much more vibrant community. But if you guys want to get involved and sort of get in on the action, as it were, then our Discord is the place to be for sure. I do currently have an event organized that is a tug-of-war event, and I'm looking for more people to join that, because currently we don't have too many. So yeah, if you guys want to get involved in the multiplayer scene and you want to participate in some big team games, I believe the formats for that are 2v2, 3v3, and 3v4. Then yeah, I recommend joining the Discord. You can find links and everything else you'd ever need down in the description of all my videos. Actually, I think all of my descriptions have that Silmarillion info tagged down below. This is an interesting map. This is one that I made, and the idea here is that there's these little points in the center that you want to play around with, but in the middle there's a lot of this mud terrain, which can be quite slow for you. So bringing like light infantry units or medium infantry, things that are a little bit faster than heavy infantry, and slogging it through here can give you a bit of a maneuverability advantage that can allow you to defeat heavy infantry focused armies. In theory, in any case. Let's see here. Got to think about this carefully, because, you know, screwing up my deployment can be bad. It can be very bad. let's see here. How do we want to play this? Now, the spearmen are actually surprisingly good in a straight-on fight. I think what we'll do is try and shield some of our units in behind these ruins here. This is not uncommon for Philathrim players to bring catapults as well. Have these guys just chilling here, and they can be group 1. And these guys can be here as well. I'll spread them out a bit, just so we don't present too many condensed targets for a lot of that very nasty Philathrim wave clear. These guys will have over here, probably group 2. I'm going to put the general in with them so that they are steadier. And these lads, we'll keep them in behind. Don't have to worry too much about Philathrim running you down with cavalry, so you can afford to be a little bit more like up front with your archers. Let's see. How embarrassing will it be if he decides to deploy on the other side? And I think that these guys are kind of good where they are. I'll make them part of that group. Alright. Well, we'll see how that goes. They can be all part of group 2. Oh, where are you? Oh, you got left out. There we go. Now they're all part of group 2 together. How lovely. Alright, let's get her done. Yeah, see? There we go. Maybe we should try and hit these units here.
We're under attack.
Yeah, hitting those marksmen, that's a good thing. He's probably going to draw them all the way back behind his lines, but he might be able to kind of hit them. Oh. There we go. That's what I like to see. Oh, is it gonna hit anybody? Clipped. I think one of my unlucky guardsmen. Indeed. Okay. Got some pikemen there we might be able to prey upon. That's kind of nice. So far, all he's managed to do is hit some of my harp guardsmen, which is okay. Yeah, they're taking an unfortunate beating. That's okay. Coming to Prince Gwindor, giving us a nice big target here, so let's try and take advantage of that. Yeah, they've had a lot of damage done to them. Let's have these guys stop here. We'll try and take a bite out of the company of Prince Gwindor. And then I think we're going to pull one of our catapults back here. He's trying to hit my armorers. That's okay. And these guys can stop. And you can stop too. Okay, managed to whittle down a decent number of their troops thus far. What's our percentages? 2 to 4. Okay, enough out of you. Have these guys come back this way, I think. He's got to be running low on catapult shots. Bring these guys back behind the lines. Start to move my catapults as well. so that they do not find themselves caught out. This one's actually fairly decently protected. These guys, I think, I want to move them over here. Take these guys. No, they're kind of good where they are. I'll use them like so. They're kind of happy where they're at, and you can come back this direction. Yep, they're going to fire at my scouts, and my scouts are predictably going to take a decent amount of damage from that. These guys just have to get within range, and they can really start to do some damage to those marksmen. Hopefully. Yeah, see? It's a good amount of damage. It's a good trade. Get in there and get those defenders if we can. Bring them forward and try and go for that surround. Oh, these lads got caught. That's okay. Pick on those wardens there just like that. Let's see here. Them get shot. How are we doing so far? Not too many good targets for these guys. Move them over here. Have them attack them. Where's my other unit? Definitely want to have them focus down the Arquini. over here, outflank these guys. Do our best. We're getting outflanked over here by some scouts. Let's have these guys move back. We're probably going to lose this one, but that's alright. Continue to shoot those Arqueni. Doing alright there. Yeah, there's just a lot of... We probably should have brought some more armor piercing. Probably would have been a smarter thing to do. These guys head over here. How we doing here? All right. Trying to outflank these guys. They're actually not doing too bad here against the bridge wards, but these guys definitely need a little bit of help. Try and get them behind them. Might be enough. Here they're doing just fine. These guys are doing okay over here as well. Let's try and bring them through here. And go for a surround over on this side. Oh, I didn't pay attention. These guys got caught out. Yeah, it's pretty easy with units like this. You just let them on auto follow, and if you screw up your micro, well, they basically get those units for free. It's unfortunate, but it is what it is. It's alright. Let's get over here. Surround these guys and try to deal with them. Guys over this way. We're starting to kind of bring it back over there. We've got them surrounded over here. Well, perhaps we're not licked yet. Over here. Come on. Move. Move, 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 move. Thank you. Thank you, friend. Let's have them get in there like that then. Maybe that's the way to go. Use the marksman to break up that charge a bit. Bring these guys out and go for the full surround. There we go. Armors are doing pretty good there. The armors are kind of seeing us through this in a lot of ways, I think. Is there like one swordsman? Yeah, okay, they managed to chew that out pretty easy. Let's recharge those pikemen now. Good, they're gonna get that animation off, so they'll be able to chase them for basically ever. Come on, get in there. What are we doing over on this side? Our Quenny more McGilwaw. Is Turin in there? Is that where the general is? I don't think so. Doesn't appear to be the case. Oh. They're definitely done in a little bit. We just got to hold on until that point. Okay, we managed to track down those scouts. That's good. We might be able to pull this off. These bridge wars are having a bad time. I think we can successfully now pull out these units here. Maybe we'll get that charge off. Doesn't look like it. Oh, they will for some of them. Got some units breaking through here. Shield bearers of the tower, and I think our armorers of the hammer were kind of what saw us through this. It's a little bit unfortunate. I feel like the armorers of the hammer, like he outflanked them and like surrounded them in a few cases. At least that's what it appeared. I have to look at the replay. But maybe the extra armor upgrade is a little bit too strong. Maybe there needs to be some other downsides. I'm not sure about that, but yeah, it seems like they're extremely resilient, which is kind of what you want out of the armors of the hammer. They are quite low model counts. Maybe that's all right, but I don't know. Something to keep an eye on. There goes the Arqueni. Oh, let's route these guys off. Okay. Just gotta finish off what's left of these guys now. I thought we were kind of boned there for a while. I thought he like kind of nicely like bisected us a little bit, but we were able to get some like opportunistic kind of rear charges with some important units and just keep him on his toes and chasing down these lads here. Oh, should probably bring these guys back. Was important too. Our scouts of the tree got absolutely obliterated. That was a really good call on his part, but we did keep those marksmen busy for a long time. There's other units they could have shot at, which maybe would have been scarier, especially with some of the like rear fire. I don't know, it's hard to say. I have to like watch the replay and like do it in detail. In there, boys. Well. That was a close one. It was a really close one. 700 men remaining. Yeah, see, a lot of people look at this and they're like, wow, 700 men? That's crazy. They got stomped. No, I do not have 700 men. Look at this. This does not equate to 700, like maybe like half that. Gallants did really well. That's good to see. They are an expensive unit. The Gallants are doing well. Marksmen of the Heavenly Arch performed very nicely in melee. I think that you're going to be able to see them more because of that extra armor upgrade. It does give them like the longevity necessary to make their like quite expensive price point actually worth your while. That I was impressed by. Armors of the Hammer did really well. Guardsmen of the Harp did kind of middling, but they were just there to sort of be trash. And my Scouts of the Tree didn't really do a lot, but we did manage to focus fire the Arqueni and also have them chase us out of the fight, which I guess worked out well. I'm a bit sad that I screwed up my micro and let my Scouts get caught and ultimately routed by the Arqueni, but it did pull them basically to the edge of the map, so that's good. where they couldn't really afford to let a unit like that go because it'll just turn around and start like pelting you with some nasty missiles. Yeah, but they were countered really effectively with Hunter's Fox. That was good. Let's go ahead and save that. Oops. First Throne, I think is what it's called. Yeah. Yeah, so good game to our opponent. Let's see if we can get another game going on. It's looking pretty bad, but regaining control. Yeah, we managed to regain control with some of our key units. I think armor is necessary for some of the more expensive, more like low model count Gondolin units that we haven't really seen a whole lot of. The armors of the hammer were niche in a few matchups. I brought them against Angband in a few different cases, and they were super, super important for winning that fight or for like being a contender in it at least. But the marksmen, I think, are the armor upgrade does do a lot of extra like nice things for them, and they're also very expensive. So I think that in and of itself kind of evens it out a little bit, because base cost they're 1250. With an armor upgrade, they're like almost 1400. And that's a lot for even a high tier archer unit with 103 models. Only 100 of which are actually archers. So I think that's okay. And I'm glad that the armors of the hammer feel a little bit more worth it now, whereas previously, you know, it was fairly easy to make them crumble. But now they do have some pretty hefty armor values. So armor piercing, of course, becomes really important with them. Rear charges and things like that. And I think it does ultimately make lancers more useful, if that makes any sense, because pardon me, because like rear charges with like quick lancers, which will be getting a little bit faster in this patch as well, are going to be key to taking down units like that. So I think if they're like coming at you from the front and they're like slogging it out in melee, that's where that unit should be most comfortable, and that's where they performed really well today. Like there wasn't a ton of like really scary anti-armor piercing units on the side of the Philathrim army aside from some of their spearmen, but their spearmen ended up getting caught out by the armorers, so that was a lopsided fight to begin with. It's an interesting set of changes. I'm not 100% sold on them. Like I said, you know, maybe the armors are a little bit too resilient, and that was like a bit unfair for Hunter's Fox. But I think that there are other things in the game, and there are other factions in the game that would be able to deal with that a little bit better. So maybe that's just a function of one of Philathrim's weaknesses, really, in that they don't have like shock infantry, and specifically like anti-armor shock infantry. So yeah, hard to say. Let's go ahead and play in the Blood Basin. This is a weird one. This is one I actually made for my Dark Tower clanmates, and then I decided to add it in because why not? So we'll go ahead and host on that. And what was the other faction someone wanted me to play? The Philathrim. I think this is a good map for them because it is technically desert terrain, so we'll play as the Philathrim this time. It may put us at a disadvantage against, you know, whatever our opponents decide to pick. There's some really nasty things that can do well against the Philathrim. Assyrian, for example. Mercifully, not too many people play Assyrian. I think it's because there's like a skill ceiling to them, and like mistakes are very punishing. But yeah, we'll just play the Philathrim. We'll just grin it and bear it. That's the one. Let's see here. While we wait for another game, whatever Hunter's Fox or any of our testers want to join up, made this map just for me. Oh, you shouldn't have. I'll probably do more of them for like closed DT people in the closed DT testing in the future. But yeah, so we're waiting for another game. If you guys have any other questions about Silmarillion Total War, I'm an open book, of course. I imagine people probably have a lot of questions about Valinor, the Naugrim. I don't mind talking about the Naugrim. I think we have some pretty like spicy ideas for how to make the dwarves compatible with what a lot of people expect from the dwarves, but also like more interesting. So you're not just like, you know, a 4 APM faction, you know what I mean? Once you get into melee, you're just kind of sitting there grinding it out, and like what happens. We do have some like kind of cool ideas and ways of breaking things up that I think a lot of people would be really interested in, especially the dwarf players out there who are looking for something a little bit more fresh. Hey, it's Hunter's Fox. Oh, I should give him money. Well, in lieu of other questions, I will take this opportunity to plug my Patreon and stuff like that. I do have a Patreon, so if you guys are interested in supporting specifically the content that you see on the channel, not the Silmarillion Total War mod, but specifically the content that you see on the channel, I do have Super Chats open, I do have a Patreon. So that's something that interests you. You can find the link for the Patreon down in the description, and of course Super Chat is, well, it's there for all the YouTube stuff always is. Yeah, so why don't we talk a little bit about the dwarves, because I'm obviously really eager to talk about that. The big things to know about the dwarves is that I guess there's like sort of a trinity of things. So they'll have some interesting artillery pieces that nobody else has. They will have a large amount of artillery, but I will be paying special attention to how much they can bring and what those artillery pieces costs versus their utility, because I don't want them to just calcify into this camping faction, which I've seen in a lot of different mods and in a lot of multiplayer matches. That's something that I want to avoid, but I do also want them to have the flavor of that interesting artillery, especially moving into campaign. 2, their stat breakdown will be a little bit different, where they focus, much like Feanor, on armor and shield at the expense of melee defense. So the idea there is to make them weaker to certain things like shield breaker or the new armor piercing traits, and are just armor piercing kind of generally, so that there is a counter to those like very chunky dwarven stats that you're going to come to expect. 3 is the detachment system. Trait-wise, I like to give things fancy names, so we're calling it tactical flexibility. A lot of their supporting units, such as the crossbowmen or any missile units that they may have, etc., etc. Some of their shock infantry as well. The high-tier shock infantry will be broken down into detachments. Just a brief little bit on the nomenclature there. Detachments in Silmarillion Total War are half-strength units. So you can see here, Rangers of Bethombar, there's 2 units of them. One is 120, the other one is 60. That is a detachment. The prices there kind of reflect that. So a lot of those supporting units, including the shock infantry, will be detachments. You'll be able to bring the same amount of them. You won't necessarily be hamstrung by the fact that they are detachments, but the intention there is to increase the amount of APM that you will be affecting as a player. So it also gives you, and not just being an artificial device to make you click more, it does give you the option to spread your fire out a little bit more. So if your enemy is bringing multiple small elite infantry units, you will be able to pressure them at multiple different points with a whole bunch of these detachments, and you'll be paying attention to their ammunition and other things like that. So it does put a little bit of a micro tax and the situational awareness on the player. At least that's the intention, to make the dwarves just a little bit more entertaining. I guess a bonus 4th thing is that while the dwarves will not necessarily be slower, all of our heavy infantry function at about 1.05 speed, like these archers here, for example. They will not have a whole lot of light infantry or really much medium infantry, though they will have some. One of the things I'm playing with is they won't have spear units, but they'll have something more akin to a quick, lighter anti-elephant, anti-mount unit, sort of akin to the Slayers in Warhammer Total War. But that's something for later. Continuing on from what I was talking about, all of those units will have a very high charge distance, so that when things get close to them, they can activate their charge bonus more readily than other factions. And also when that bonus is activated, all units get a speed boost. So sort of a dwarves are natural sprinters kind of thing, but actually brought in mechanically into Silmarillion Total War to give the dwarves a little bit of flavor. So you'll be able to charge at greater distances, so you can like surprise people with a little bit of mobility where maybe they wouldn't otherwise be expecting it, and that's going to help you get on top of people and really get into that glorious melee where the dwarves are undoubtedly going to excel. That being said, if you do it from too great of a distance, it's not just like haha click I win. If you do it from too great of a distance, you will suffer cohesion problems, because all the individuals will like kind of get away from each other, and it makes it much easier to surround them and destroy them. So you do need to be a little bit calculated with how you do that, but the option is there for that additional mobility. So between the artillery, the detachment system, and how heavily we lean into that with the dwarves, some unique unit types and some unique hamstrings that they have, the artillery, and that little charge trick basically with the greater distance, I think that the dwarves will play differently than a lot of other dwarven factions in the game, while still maintaining a level of familiarity that, you know, Dwarven players won't walk in, they won't be like completely mystified, you know what I mean? So I think it's sort of a solid compromise between, you know, making them dwarves with cavalry and like the full slow light infantry traditional dwarven faction that a lot of people are used to. So yeah, dwarves. I should probably build an army because Tender's Fox doesn't want to listen to me talk anymore. Let's see here. He's playing as Twin Gauderhoth. These will be nice to have. Maybe do a sneaky Philathrim build, why not, eh? And get ourselves out with those. I don't know if the Mace Mail will necessarily be the most useful thing. Wares of Eglarest have had some good changes as well, namely that they had the wrong damage type. They were using Piercing, which is a little bit of a hindrance for them in melee. So now they don't have Piercing, so they're a little bit spicier in close quarters. These are important units to have because they're just really good all the time. Pop you in there. Maybe not, actually. Can we afford? Yes, we can. Oh yeah, they have an armor upgrade now as well, so that's kind of cool. I think what we might do is give the Orion Ephidune a second armor upgrade. I think I might have already done that, actually. Yeah, we have. Okay, yeah. Thank you, Past Jordan. You really set me up for success today. And what else do we have here? I think I could probably afford... We don't have any nobles, though. That's a little bit different. Got a lot of anti-cavalry tools here, but I don't necessarily want to go too hard into that. But I think we can afford to dip into the red for these guys. And then maybe we can give some Chevys. There we go. Chevy to the levy for those lads there. I think that should be a fairly effective build at fighting Twin Gauderhoth. It's got a pretty good infantry core, lots of light infantry, lots of, you know, cavalry cannons and things like that, and some extra mobility, so that's really nice. Hopefully he doesn't bring mangonels and kick our ass. That's entirely possible, but such is the way of the game. Let me just tab out here while I load in. Genius idea to increase charge distance. I appreciate that. It's I don't know if it's necessarily genius. I think it is a creative solution to dwarven mobility problems and sort of how boring it can be. Do our attack upgrades add +3 attack? From what I understand, it adds +2. I don't know about 3+. From what I got from talking to the people who originally built a lot of the like reforged stat system, it's +2 per upgrade rather than +3, because +3 is crazy. But Jojo may have some more insights and more updated information on that. But as far as I know, if it adds +2 or +3 or whatever the number ends up being ultimately, then it's the same across all mods, because I don't think that's something that you can really alter. If it is, I would love to know, because I have many ideas about how we could use that. But as far as I know, it's the same. It's universal. Alrighty. So, Blood Basin. It's a nice little team deathmatch thingamajig, where one team starts in the ruins, and the other team starts outside of them. Normally it's a little bit bigger than this. You can like move all the way through here and yada yada, but it's 1v1, so the map's going to be a little bit smaller. How do we want to play this? There's a few options. I think I know what I like, what I want to do in terms of options here. So let's move everybody over this way. So we can use the how much should I say? I don't know if Turner's Fox here is not. I guess this doesn't really matter. So what I want to try and do is use my Aron Cure Limb maybe as bait. And then since these guys can hide, it's pretty tempting bait, especially for, say, some of the really strong cavalry units, such as the Thrangsheik Warlords. So, might be a good way to sort of bait them in, get them entangled in spears, and then have them run into heavy infantry, and then have the sort of killing blow come from the Marines of Brithambar, who can just pelt them with javelins. They're harassment javelins, so it's pretty nice. And then in behind them, we're going to have a whole bunch of Warriors of Eglarest, who are sort of the cleanup crew, as it were. And then out here on the wings, we can have sort of a force to basically like bully Tolan Gaudhoth and take advantage of the fact that they don't exactly have great armor. Their ranged units are alright. The hunters did get a little bit of a nerf. They went down from 4 to 3 damage, which is cool. But we also have, you know, this really nice like mobile force here. We'll maybe mix them in. Maybe it's more prudent. Keep these guys here. Or keep them like out on the wing or something. And then we can deploy them as needed. Or redeploy them as needed. Do that. And the stakes will be the last thing that we do. And then we can take our 2 detachment archers. Have them be over here. And so that's 2. Alright, let's try that. When I've seen from Jack Lusted Post, it's +2 per level, so +2 for bronze. Yeah, that's my understanding as well. Campaign, you can have much more armor upgrades and things and attack upgrades and whatever than you can in single. But in multiplayer, it only goes up to bronze. Than you can in, did I say than you can in single? Than you can in multi. Yeah, in multiplayer, it only goes up to bronze. So I'm pretty sure it's +2. That's also my understanding, and Waffles plays a lot of vanilla, so I feel confident, vindicated even, that he's corroborating that, but it could be that we're both wrong. It's entirely possible. Okay. Well, let's do this. Sexy. Okay, so he's kind of moved over here. What do we have? Well, I can tell you what we don't have, and that's mangonels. Almost guarantee you there's a lot of hidden Hishpokraus units in here. Such as... Okay. So let's quickly redeploy. Move over this way. Try and get... Oh, well, it does kind of mess up my ambush a little bit. But that's okay, because I don't want to get outflanked. Yeah, that would be bad news bears. Pay attention here to kind of how they move, because if there's units in here, then they'll try to go around them. That's a good indicator. Yeah, we got those archers there, so they're going to try and open fire while we're running away. But they don't exactly have the greatest range, so we're going to be able to outrange them there. Maybe... them get shot. Break them off. Don't want to get these guys shot, so let's bring them back. I'm going to try to focus fire. That's the only real way to quickly and easily deal with these Tolan Gaudhoth archers, because they are so good against, especially light troops. Yeah, light troops they do very well against. I want these guys to stop so that they can hide. Maybe we want these guys to be over here. Yeah, really want to take these guys down because they can be a problem for us later in the game. Where are these guys going? Yeah, we'll eat up as much of that ammunition as we possibly can. It's using a lot on just a detachment archer, or a detachment spearman. Jockey for some position up there. Draw these guys back. Bring you over here, hide you in behind. Okay, big opportunity here, so let's just go up there. Draw these guys back. Let them stop. Yeah. Have them shoot at those Laukskaras. You guys can do that. Watch those howlers. Bring you guys over this way. Come on, you idiots, move. Uh-oh, that's not good. Where are... them blunt that charge. We are going to beat them. Oh no, I didn't realize they had Pyre Wolves. That's bad news, Bears. It's a really nice move there. I forgot that they were a thing for Tolan Gower House, so that's not good. Bring these guys back. Ronkir Limb cleaning up here. That's nice. There they go. Shoot the war back. How are our other cavalry units doing over here? Pretty good. Okay, I feel confident enough in letting these guys disengage. Shoot those war back to death for sure. Just bully those Pyre Wolves forever.
Only half the enemy force remains.
There we go. are we doing here? We need to get our booty moving. They'll be okay. They have the armor upgrade. They'll be able to take that for a while. Fire wolves running away. Where you guys at? Doing just fine here against those hunters. They're keeping them out of the fight. That's good. Pull these guys out of the fight. Really just need to whittle down the last of these units here. Really need to get those pyre wolves. That's essential. What are these guys up to? Throwing sheep wolfborn, not having a good time. Go, managed to catch the pyre wolves. That was really nasty. That was a nice move on his part. I totally forgot the pyre wolves were a thing, which is kind of funny because I made the unit conceptually. Still, kind of funny. Oh no, Spear House, get in there. You can do it. Oh, they're gonna rout. Yep, it's that fire at work. It's nasty stuff. Let's get these guys. And there, kill those chosen. We can start to redeploy here. Let's get in against those Hishpu Kraz, see if we can't finish them off. What's the ultimate percentages here? It was a tough one. That's we definitely brought like a really strong counter, and if he had mangonels, I think this might have been a little bit different because I had everything like layered up and just like stacked so nicely, you know? Uh-oh. Use this opportunity here to pick on those Throng Sheik. And they're it's routing off my isolated units really nicely. How are we doing over here? Yeah, just fine. Those hunters are gonna die. These guys can come back now. Really need the foresters and stuff over here. Got a lot of routing over here. He's not going to win with what he's got left, but certainly can put up a good fight. I'm not going to move to intercept the charge, but we will move to pin them and cut off their retreat. One thing we didn't do well at all is use our harassment javelins. We kind of whiffed that. Oh, Soundround's still here. That's a bad thing. That's okay. He wants to detach those units, that's fine. We're going to bring our guys back over here. We're going to bring our cavalry to counter his. We're just going to set up a little cordon here around Sauron. He's just going to meat-headedly run at us because there's not really much else he can do. Did they end up routing? Was that the Chosen? I think it was. I think it's just Sauron now. Unless it's not. There we go. These are all of our elephant fighting units, so get him in there against Sauron. We could just like mass blob him, but that's where he's going to do the most damage to us, so we just kind of have to sit here and deal with it until he dies. Yep, might as well just get in there, I guess. God, would you just die already? It'd be so much easier if I had some armor piercing, but unfortunately I don't. I do have the Foresters, though, and they're pretty good, but there's not too many of them left at this point. I'll be sad if Sauron cheeses his way to victory here. That'd be kind of lame. We should have done a good amount of damage to him already, but... just like, friggin' die already.
Pray something changes in the course of battle.
Oh my god, we might actually lose this.
Seems almost certain.
That'd be an unfortunate way to go. That probably means that we'd have to nerf Sauron, to be perfectly honest, because he shouldn't be able to solo an entire army.
Defeat seems almost certain.
Oh well, we're actually gonna lose this. What do you know? Yeah, that's kind of chancy. We'll have to do something about that. Find some ways to deal with him. Yeah, that's lame. That's hella lame. Oh well, kind of funny though. Thing is, if I'd have brought some certain counters to him, if I'd have brought some of the Marines of Eglarest, we'd have been able to just one-shot him. That's the thing. That's why I sort of hesitate here, because like obviously this shouldn't happen, but at the same time I didn't have the right counters to Sauron.
Our foolish general has thrown his life away. Our men have fought long and are becoming tired.
Oh well, clearly outplayed. Yeah, that's really dumb. We may have to nerf his armor value a little bit, or find some new ways to sort of increase the efficacy of basic infantry against him, because that's a little silly. He basically just killed like several hundred people all by himself. That being said, we also didn't have the right counters to him, so it's a hard one. Yeah, that's lame, but what can you do? Let's look at that. What time are we at? We're at 9 o'clock, so we gotta shut it down there. Yeah, that's pretty meme-worthy, but you know, this is why we have the test build. If we had any like two-handed units or like two-handed spears, like proper two-handed spears, like the Balar nobles and stuff, or if we had the hunter javelins, we would have been able to just, you know, wipe the floor with Sauron. But I guess the numbers just weren't enough there. That being said, that's the kind of thing that probably shouldn't happen. So if we go and look at his stats, they're actually pretty beefy. So we might have to nerf him a little bit. Specifically in regards to his armor value, which might be a little bit overtuned. That's probably why he was able to just survive that. But yeah, pretty funny. Yeah, look at that. He's got 40 armor, and that's just because he has a big hitbox and stuff. But we could probably cut that down to like 30. I think that'd be a little bit more reasonable. Yeah. Anyway, good game to Tundra's Fox. So I guess our good game to Sauron. I don't know. I feel like we beat the player, but we lost to Sauron. But yeah, good game to my opponent. That's all I can really do for today. I will open up the floor for a few more minutes here. If you guys, Alex, that's disingenuous though. There's many counters to Sauron, but you know he shouldn't be able to hack his way through 400 or 500 people just doing nothing. Like there's no tactics involved in that. I'd be fine if there was like some micromanagement, but I'm pretty sure Tundra's Fox wasn't even present at that point anymore. So that's obviously something that we should fix. And we won't pretend even for a second that that's an okay thing to do. But yeah, that being said, also if we had the hard counters there, he would have fallen quite quickly. But yeah, I don't think you should lose a game just because you don't target Sauron early. I think that's kind of silly and Warhammer-esque. But yeah, we'll try to find a little bit more of a reasonable implementation for him. But if anybody has any questions, regarding development, now would be the time to ask before I take off for the day. I know, I'm well aware of what the reason is, Artorias. I just spoke to it, so. I mean, at this point, you're just reiterating things I just said, so don't be silly. I'll give it another couple of minutes here, and then I'm going to sign off for the day. Well, it's looking like we don't have any more questions. I think that we've answered a lot of things. Obviously, we still have some stuff to work on with Sauron and some of the other elephant units in particular. But yeah, overall, it was a pretty fun game. I quite enjoyed playing against Hunter's Fox. If you guys want to get involved in the campaign, or not in the campaign, rather in the community and things like that, then I recommend that you join our Discord down in the description. Yeah, that's really all I can tell you. Anything else, you'll have to wait to the next stream. Tomorrow we will be starting at 6 o'clock in the morning, and we're going to be playing, I'm not 100% sure yet, but it will probably be Nimbus Project, which is a fun little mech game that I picked up for about $11 during the Steam sale. So yeah, I'll talk to you guys